Houston, say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, and welcome to another Friday Rambling. Well, actually it's 2 Friday Ramblings once again. Yes, you heard me correctly, you are being pleasured on a Friday with 2 of these. And the reason for this is because they're both about E3. One of them is about Microsoft press conference and the other one is about PlayStation press conference. So all I'm going to do is run through all of the key things that I picked up on, of which I have on a very technical device here, which is out new now, called a notepad with pen. It's all very high tech, you know, doing all of this. So I've jotted down all the key things that went on in each one that I picked up on, which should be most of them, and just give you my opinion of how they both went. Personally, I think they had great conferences, both of them. I will, without showing any favoritism whatsoever, because I love playing on both consoles anyway, I will post them up in the order that they were presented to the world, which was Microsoft first and PlayStation second. So I shall do them in that order, but I will post them up all tonight, which is Friday! Now then, they kicked off with the Xbox One Slim, sort of shiny and new, spinning around in all sorts of screens, and everybody kind of knew that the Xbox Slim was coming. It all got leaked beforehand. It does look really beautiful and much, much nicer and slinkier than the existing Xbox One, although I don't mind the look of the Xbox One, and the main thing about the Xbox One for me is it's really, really quiet in comparison to the PlayStation. My PlayStation sounds like it's... Well, it's not that it's loud, it's the fans in it that are loud. So because of the size of it, I think that the heat that it generates, when it gets warm, you hear this almighty sort of whooshing of fans kicking off. So I kind of have an open glass cabinet, if you like. There's no ceiling in the sound, and I prefer that because it means things stay cooler. So the Xbox One is by far quieter because I never hear it at all. Never hear fans going off, never hear anything. It's dead quiet. So I'll be interested to know whether the Xbox Slim, or Xbox S, Xbox One S as it's called, whether or not it's louder. Also, to go with that, the brick that you normally get with the Xbox is now inside the Xbox One. And it's the first time I think they've ever managed to do that. Every single Xbox, certainly 360 that I ever saw, and the Xbox One has a power brick sitting outside of it, as well as the main unit. And with the PlayStation, you didn't get that. Everything's contained. So it's a much tidier unit. But with all of that being inside the Xbox One S, it'll be interesting to see if it is just as quiet as the Xbox One, full fat one, as it were, which I've got. So yeah, so they kicked off with that. It's $299, which is blah in pounds. You can work that out. With 2TB hard drive, and they did seem to suggest that the hardware had changed slightly, and it was a tiny bit better, I think, from what they were saying. But they have said, in relation to that, there will be literally no effect on any of the game play. The games are what they are. They're not going to play better simply because there's a bit of extra power kicking around in there, and it is minimal, but it's just the components are newer. I don't know the ins and outs, but they certainly seem to suggest that anyway. But they did say there'll be no difference to the gameplay. The other interesting point was that there is no Kinect connection on it, which is very important if you're a person that likes Kinect and uses it, whether it just be for the voice commands or whatever. Then there is no standard connection for it. But what they have said is, and I don't know how they're going to do this, they've said if you request a connector, which is an adapter, for the Xbox One S, you'll get it for nothing, you'll get it for free. So how they manage to do that, I don't know, whether it's just retailers, whether you go on the website and they send you one, no idea. But worth checking out if you are someone that's interested in getting the Xbox One S, then, and you do use the Kinect, then you will have to get this adapter in order for it to work on it. So there you go. So that was the big sort of lead in to all of their stuff. They kicked off with that. Then they led on to, they were pushing cross-buying a lot in this conference. And it's a great thing, I think, if you're a PC gamer or if you play your Xbox One games on PC, then fantastic, because you only have to buy one license, you can play it on both. So that's a great feature, and they mentioned that it would be coming with Gears of War 4, which is on the way, and so on and so forth. They mentioned through the whole conference they kept going cross-buy with, I think Forza was mentioned, and cross-buy with all sorts of stuff. So they're really pushing this play on Xbox One, play on PC, everything's being brought together. So they're really, really pushing that with everything they've done pre this and in this as well. They even, I won't mention it all the time, but they kept mentioning it through all of the points that I did. It was cross by this, cross by that. So if you, as I say, if you're into the PC side of it as well, then it's a fantastic bonus. They then moved on to Gears of War 4, which is the, big exclusive for them, probably the biggest one they're kicking around with at the minute. It was a great clip, looks fantastic, doesn't look like the concept and the gameplay design is exactly the same. It looks incredible, looks absolutely fantastic. Whether that's playing on an Xbox One or whether it's playing on a PC, I don't know. So we'll have to see just how it looks when it does come out. But it looked absolutely fantastic. The only thing that bugged me, and my mate Craig said the same thing, he said the voiceovers were awful. Like, like they'd be running and everything's kicking off and they go, what are we going to do now? Oh, what about this? Oh, look at that there, shoot that. And it was all like, oh, for God's sake, look, let us figure something out. You don't have to talk us through everything you have to do. It's going to be fairly... So that part of it was a bit... I'm not having a go at the voice actors as such, just the script that they were given. The voice actors were fine at what they were doing. It's just that they were being asked to point out things in such a remedial way. It was like, you don't have to do that. Like, you just let us run through the game. It's absolutely fine. So whether that stays in or not, I've no idea. Then maybe they get feedback. They might tweak it a little bit. But it was absolutely epic. The action scene we saw was fantastic. The action was brilliant. They'd added things like, you used to be able to run up to the creatures and chainsaw them. That seems to still be there. We did see one running around with a saw, but they seem to be really pushing the characters that they could use knives and stabbing instead of the chainsaw. So they were showing off all sorts of other melee type stuff, which was quite cool. So I think we saw maybe 2 different ways of doing that, and they were pretty cool sort of in-game cutscene type things when you did use those moves on the Locust or whatever they're calling them in this one. So it does. They haven't changed any of the concept or any of the game or any of the what you would want to see in a Gears game, which I think is probably the right thing to do. If you start changing it too much, people will probably fall out of love with it rather than love it. And I think to some extent that happened with the Halo game. I think they expected it to be the dog's bollocks, and I think I've seen it now for about £6 brand new, because it's just holding no value, because the single player campaign apparently wasn't great, and they kind of lost their way with it totally. So hopefully they can get that back on track in the next one. I don't think the gameplay was bad or anything. I think it was just that people were like, what have you done with the story? It's all a bit pants. So hopefully they haven't done that with Gears. And the massive thing was, because I was always curious, because this game is about Marcus Phoenix's son. So... and his son in it looks about early 20s or whatever he's meant to be. So it was like, I wonder if Marcus is in it. And there was a scene, and it was a cutscene, where you see Marcus Phoenix grade basically saying, hello, son, I think, when he walked into the room. It was the very last thing we saw. And it was pretty uber to see Marcus Phoenix sat there. It was pretty cool. So it'll be interesting to see if he's a playable character, if he's in the story much. I suspect they're probably going to want to just have him in the background, because you want to focus kind of on the new protagonists and not have to rely on the old ones too much. So that was interesting. So that was a massive biggie for them. They then moved on to Forza Horizon 3, which is set in Australia. It looks absolutely beautiful. And they really, really homed in on, at any point, anywhere, just invite your mates with like one click of a button. They can join, even if they're playing another race in Forza Horizon, you can just jump straight in, and you all, like 4 of you, can just end up in this race where you were. Just go for it straight off one click of a button, basically. So it was pretty impressive stuff. The stunts they were showing off were fantastic. The areas were beautiful. The mechanics looked fantastic. There was lots of whooping and cheering. I'm not a racing person. I don't play racing games, but it did look really good fun, I must say. Certainly I would say, more fun than just going round and round a track. So it might be something I try out if I see it cheap enough. But I tend not to play racing games. I just find them a bit. I can play them for about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm like, okay, move on now. Just who I am, you know. They then moved on to Recore, which is a new IP again, and it's kind of a cross between an action game and a platformer. So there are going to be puzzles and levels that you have to jump your way through, work your way through, but you have robots and machines that help you do all of this, and the idea is that you have to figure out what they're all best at and use them. And I think they were saying, I was watching an interview with one of the designers afterwards, and it was a platformer studio and an action studio had come together. One was from America, one was from Japan. They've come together to make this game. So they've brought all of those two type of elements together into this game. And it looks beautiful, looks fantastic. The mechanics look great. The characters look brilliant. The main character that sort of runs around with you, sort of mechanical dog, but you get sort of all sorts of mechanical creatures that they haven't given them all away yet. I think there's 5 in total. So it does look like it'll be a really interesting one, that. And it'll be interesting to see if it's something that does well enough for them to do more than one. Sort of has that vibe of another game from last gen that I'm forgetting the name of. It'll come back to me. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, we'll move on. But it does have that sort of post-apocalyptic type world type thing. And it was all set sort of on the top of it was sort of in desert terrain. But the guy afterwards was saying you actually end up in areas underneath that desert terrain where there's sort of deserted bases, mechanical bases. So it's all high-tech stuff sort of underneath your feet, and you have to find your way, work your way through them, find your way through them, all that sort of stuff. So it does look really interesting, and it's one to keep an eye on, certainly. They then went on to a Final Fantasy 15 clip. The Recore, by the way, is out on September the 13th, and Forza Horizon 3 is out on September the 27th. Final Fantasy 15, which they went on to after this, which isn't obviously an exclusive, that's cross-platform. They showed off a massive boss fight, and I was like, that was a bit rubbish. It was just this ginormous monster. I think it was a Titan. I think they called it a Titan anyway. But a ginormous monster, and they were these 4 characters trying to fight this big monster. But all that was happening was you just saw the massive head and the body sort of bit, and then this massive arm just kept swinging across, and they all flattened, and then they got up and healed, and then they went chopping its arm, and then the arm came across, and they all fell on the floor and got flattened. It was just kind of that over and over again. So, I mean, visually it looked fairly impressive, but I don't know where the excitement of that battle comes from. I don't know. I know people are excited for this game. I'm personally have been slightly worried for this game for quite some time. A, because it's taken so long for it to come into come to fruition, and B, because it started as something else. So, not sure. I'm sure it'll be a great game, but I'm not sure if those fighting mechanics are going to please an awful lot of Final Fantasy fans. Having said that, they did show stuff off in the PlayStation thing, which I think was slightly different, and it did look slightly better in that particular demo. So it might just have been that fight. So we'll see. So they only had it was just the Final Fantasy folk came on, did that fight, and then went off, and that's basically what we saw. And that's out on September the 30th, I believe. They then went on to the new dashboard features, which are, well, the key ones that I picked out were you can play background music when you're playing your games, which a lot of people whooped and cheered at. So, you know, I suppose if you're playing games like Destiny where you're grinding a bit or what have you, and you're not actually needing to listen to any story, or maybe even you racing and stuff. But my main problem with background music is that if you're playing any type of game now, there tends to be music kicking around them. So even if you're grinding in Destiny, there's music kicking off around the place. So unless you can turn the music off in these games, of course, in which case you're laughing, aren't you? So the background music was there. Cortana is being introduced to the Xbox One in the next update as well, which means all the voice command stuff and all that will work through Cortana rather than through Microsoft. I think you say, hey, Cortana, do this, rather than Xbox, do that. Which is probably better anyway, because every time you say the word Xbox without realising it, it does something without you wanting it to. I've actually taken my Kinect off now. I don't use it at all. It's in a box somewhere. So the Cortana feature's getting put in instead, and Xbox Live Arenas they were going on and on about, where you can set up these arenas if you're going to do tournaments with your friends and stuff like that, and make it easier to do these sort of tournament fighting or racing or whatever it might be. These arena things are supposed to help you. They're a bit like groups and gathering points for people. So those were the key bits that I picked up on. There was a bit more than that, but the rest of it was a bit meh, really. Minecraft Folk then came out and showed off crossplay to Xbox. Well, it was crossplay from Xbox Live to PC, Android, and iOS. So they're really pushing the fact that you can join in with your mates on all these different devices, which is quite cool. I've never really been a Minecraft person. Maybe to be fair though, I've never played it. I've watched people play it and I've thought, it's not for me. So those sandbox type games haven't really appealed to me at any point whatsoever. But it might be. I often come late to a genre. It's not the first time. It's been 5-6 years, and I get into it later on. So it could be that I come to it at some point. But anyway, for you Minecraft folk, there you are. You have the crossplay coming along. They then went on to a game called Inside, which is by the Limbo team, the people that did Limbo. It looked beautiful. If you're into the side-scrolling type, puzzle-type games and stuff, then it's right up your street. It had plenty of ambience, plenty of feeling to it. Looked really good. Looked really interesting. Looked like we don't know what the story was, but it looked like you were trying to lead a group of people through somewhere at one point. So it does look gorgeous. It'll be interesting to see how well received it is. I don't know how popular those types of games are, and it certainly just seemed to be pushed for Xbox One. Maybe it will come on PC as well. So it was a fairly brief showing, but it did look good. It looked really nice. They then moved on to an indie dev sort of splatter of loads of different games, all the different indie games that are coming along. They then went on to a really interesting game, which was called We Happy Few, and no idea what it was at first. It looked like it was going to be some random sort of kiddie type thing, but it was almost BioShock-esque. You thought you were in a happy place, but suddenly and very quickly realised you were actually in a dark environment. And it had that sort of... They were showing that this woman sort of walks in and says, have you taken your I can't remember what they called it, your special tablets or whatever they are, and they were like, yeah. But there was a kind of a cutscene before that where he was like, I don't want to take them, and he was throwing them in the bin. So because he hasn't taken them, he starts seeing what's actually happening around him, whereas the other people obviously are still oblivious to it, because whatever this drug's doing is making everything look amazing and happy and glorious. So it was certainly it was a first-person view. It didn't see any sign of weapons or any sign of anything. You were just loads of running away, loads of trying not to get caught. So I don't really know. They may have said more after the event when people interviewed them about it, but it didn't seem to suggest that it was a BioShock type of gameplay. It was just that sort of world. So whether it's like an Outlast type thing where you just got to run and hide or not get caught or puzzle things out or whatever, I don't know. Or whether it is actually an action thing where you get a gun. We don't know, but it did the concept, the idea, the game. Well, it looked really gorgeous. So it'll be interesting to see more of that when they've got more to tell us. They then went on. Well, CD Projekt Red then came on, and they started. Well, they basically punted a Gwent game that they've made to go alongside The Witcher. I don't think you have to have The Witcher to play it. It stands on its own as a Gwent card game, and it looks fantastic. I don't play these card games. Everybody that played The Witcher, well, not everybody, it's a bit harsh. A lot of people that played The Witcher loved the Gwent game in it, and they spent a long time playing the Gwent game, and they all got on CD Projekt Red, and they were like, come on, give us a proper Gwent game. So they've gone out, they've done it, and they've done it full on as well. It looks absolutely glorious. I can't see me playing it, but if you're into that sort of thing, it's on its way. I don't remember if they gave us a date. No, just says Gwent game. I didn't jot down a date, so maybe they haven't got one yet. Tekken 7 was then shown off. Again, I'm not a big fighting game type person, but I haven't really got much to say about it. Tekken 7 was shown off. Looked fine. And they went on to Dead Rising 4, which kind of came a bit out of the blue. They've gone back to, and I didn't play any of the older Dead Risings. The only one I've played is Dead Rising 3. And to be honest, it just looked like Dead Rising 3 with new areas, new city. I can't remember where they said it was actually, but a new city anyway. And back to, I believe, one of the old protagonists. So it's back to a character from a previous one, possibly the first one. So yeah, it might be the guy from the first one. So it looked like absolutely fantastic. Masses of zombies on screen, loads going on, loads of different stupid outfits to wear, loads of different weapons to chop things up with and mash them all around. So obviously Dead Rising 3 has done enough to justify getting Dead Rising 4, and they've just gone for it. And again, it is another exclusive to the Xbox One. So that is on its way. Again, no date for that one. They showed off Scalebound again, which is this one where I've seen people playing it, so I think it's one of these where you can preview play it. And you're basically a sort of fighting type character that has a dragon that you work with, and you can ride the dragon, fight on the dragon, or you can jump off the dragon and fight separately. So there's it was... I don't know, it was an odd one. It was a bit... I was expecting it to be amazing the first time I saw it, and I was unsure. And the more I see of it, the more I'm not sure of it. Certainly not my cup of tea. And I mean, it looks beautiful enough. I just don't see... It just doesn't do anything for me. I was like, take it or leave it. Can't see me playing it at all. But if you're into that sort of thing, it looks fantastic. It looks like a lot of fun if you want to ride around a dragon and shoot flames and stuff at things. They then... What do we do after that? Sea of Thieves, actually, which looks... Sea of Thieves is a pirate game, which they've done. It plays in first-person mode, and you can play it with your friends. I think there was 4 people. They brought 4 people to the studio. This was the video they showed on screen. They brought 4 people. It might have been more than 4, actually. They brought all these people. And now I think it was because there was ships fighting on other ships, and on each ship there was other people, I think. There was like a team. So you can go anywhere in this world to any of the islands and go look for treasure and fight other people on pirate ships and live the pirate life, basically. But it's all kind of done. It's almost in that sort of Fable-esque type visuals, and I was surprised by it because when it first started showing it, I was like, not sure about that. It's another cartoony type thing, but it did look pretty good actually. The way that they showed it off, anyway, it'd be interesting to see far more of that, and it got a lot of people's attention. So there you go. So a bit of piratey goodness there. There was no date for that either, so it'd be interesting to see when that's coming out. Big one, State of Decay 2 was shown off, and one of the big things with State of Decay was people were like, why can we not play co-op? We're all obsessed with co-op now, although I'm not particularly. Quite happy playing on my own. But a lot of folk want co-op, and they certainly want co-op in an open world type game like that, where you're running around trying to fight zombies and stuff. So it was just one of those things. A State of Decay kind of became a sort of cult classic of its own time, really. I think it was done on a very minor budget, and it just became a massive success. So I think they probably got a bit more money to do this one, and it looks pretty much like the last one, but probably a bigger world, and you can do co-op play with your mates. And that got a massive roar from the crowd, because State of Decay for Xbox One play, and it's an Xbox One exclusive, because State of Decay was on the 360, and then they ported it over to the Xbox One, and I believe this is just for the Xbox One. So that was a big woo from the crowd when that showed up. Again, I think, they said 2017, and that was it. They didn't actually say the date. Halo Wars 2 is out on February the 21st, 2017. And the beta apparently was out, well, they said out now. I think it was only for a week. So if you want to get a shot at that, then you want to do it now. I'm not into these sort of Halo War type games, but it did look like good fun. Looked great graphically, and they looked like they'd added a whole lot of features in there, so that's worth checking out. And finally, Phil Spencer came on, which I wasn't expecting. He came on right at the end and basically just blew everybody away by saying, yes, Project Scorpio is real and it will be out next year. And Project Scorpio being an Uber version of the Xbox One, which is basically 4 times more powerful, can do 4K gaming, and has 6 teraflops of shiz. We all have a good bit of teraflops, don't we? But 6 teraflops is what VR is highly interested in. Whatever these teraflops are doing, the VR needs that kind of power to run at the sort of expectations the devs have to do VR on. So that's why they've gone for that level of Xbox One power. But the bit that kind of has got me a bit, because I was like, well, that's fine, because I could buy that and then worry about a 4K telly later. At least I'll be getting benefit from the extra power. But Phil Spencer said after the event that you won't see any benefit from the Uber Xbox One unless you've got a 4K TV. Now that sounds a bit weird to me, because why can't you have... There's other benefits to something other than it just being in 4K, but that would suggest to me that you're going to have a game with two settings, and it'll either be fully 4K or it'll be normal. And if you haven't got a 4K telly, it'll say, no, sorry, you haven't got a 4K telly. So that slightly concerns me, because if you went out and bought that extra power, they're basically telling you that even if you've bought it, you're still not going to see the benefit till you go out and buy the 4K TV. So if you were thinking about rushing out just to get better frame rates, don't do it unless you've got a 4K telly, is what Phil Spencer was saying afterwards. So it'd be interesting to see if they clarify that between now and the launch of it next time, or whether they change anything to do with it. But I can imagine that devs are they're probably only going to release two versions of a game. It'll be the standard version and the Uber version, the same with the PlayStation one that's coming. So there you are. So that was the glorious Xbox reveal. Games wise, there was a couple of things in there that interested me: Recore and Gears of War predominantly, and obviously the big reveal with the Xbox Uber Xbox at the end, and the Slim, which looks really nice, but I'll probably not bother. If there's an Uber version coming later on, I'll wait and get that. But it was a good conference. I think the Xbox people loved it. I was surprised they didn't do more of, here's some more Xbox backward compatibility games. They didn't mention it at all, as far as I remember. I was expecting them to say, Fable Anniversary is ready, Dragon Age is ready, but none of that. There was none of that at all. So that was the only thing I was a little bit disappointed on, because I was hoping to do a few more videos on those for you guys. But I've got Dragon Age 2 ready and Fable Anniversary ready to do some on, but they haven't hit the list, and they were supposed to by now. But there you are. That's life. Well, there you are. It has been an honour and a privilege telling you all about the Xbox One conference, or the Xbox conference, to be fair. And I shall see you all in the PlayStation conference vlog, which I shall be recording next. You guys take it easy. Bye.